I'm Sharon Stammers. I'm one of the co-founders of the Women in Lighting project. And alongside the other co-founder, Martin Lupton, and our social media manager, Katia Colavia, and our support of Former Lighting, we're really excited that we're launching Women in Lighting T-shirt design competition. And Liz West here is one of our lovely judges. Martin and I first met Liz in Mexico, but we didn't get talking until we met her in Norway. So it's kind of quite strange that we can't get to meet in some lovely country and have this interview, and we have to do it like this remotely. That's where we are. So thank you, Liz, for agreeing to judge the entries when they come through. We're going to do an interview like we've done all the other interviews of the project and ask Liz the questions that we've asked other women around the world. So we're going to start by asking you to introduce yourself and tell us how you started working with light.
Well, that's a big question, but thank you for having me. I can't, like you said, I can't wait to see what people come up with. And judging things, you always feel quite a lot of pressure, I think. But no, it's fun. So where did I start? So I'm from an art background rather than a lighting design or architecture background. So I studied at art school. Before that, I was always really interested in making art. So I was like, just did it for fun all the time. I loved doing it at GCSE. I did well at A level. So it just felt like a really natural progression. And I should also mention that, you know, both mum and dad are artists as well. So I grew up in a house that was full of art and 2 studios. So if I wasn't upstairs with mum in her very light and bright drawing studio, I was downstairs in the workshop in the garden with dad, who was slightly messier with clay fiberglass. So really natural for me to want to go into the arts. I think I was either going to do art or probably something in theatre land. So whether that was set design, but thinking about my work now, it's certainly theatrical. You know, I think I would have done quite well and been quite happy pursuing that career, you know, because the work's immersive, it's theatrical, people become performers within it. So
maybe you'll end up doing a stage design at some point. Maybe you'll get that.
I'd love to.
Yeah. If
I'd like to collaborate.
Anyone watching,
yeah,
this is open to that. So if you had to teach yourself a lot about light, the sort of medium of light, I know that's not one of the questions, but
the first question is a hard one because it's such a big question, because how do you pinpoint where you started something when, let's say, the normal person on the street would have that moment where they think, right, what am I going to do next after school? And they'd follow a path. Whereas for me, it was more just a really natural thing. Whereas I'd be just in the world around me taking in inspiration. And that was always very vivid colours and light. And that goes back as far as I can remember. Just silly things, like I would collect nail varnish and line them up against my windowsill in the colour spectrum. Just like kiddie things.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So that was like, I was like 6-7 years old. So even thinking back to that, or something I used to do as a method of play was kind of mix PVA glue with paint or inks or sequins and lay it flat on a sheet of plastic and let it dry so it went almost like stained glass, and then stick it to my bedroom window. Now, I mean, how far have I moved on from
so maybe
I had to teach myself lighting, because, you know, when I was on probably my 3rd year of my degree, I started really pursuing that avenue, and that would have been 2006. So that's the year YouTube was founded. So I remember going on YouTube, like looking at demonstrations of how to wire up fluorescent lamps. Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about your work now then, or sort of, you know, how you work as an artist, and what your projects are like? I mean, I know because I've seen lots of them, but to anyone else that hasn't had a chance to experience one.
They are, big works in galleries, public realm, museums. Most of it is site specific and site responsive. So the opportunity will almost always certainly start with an email or a phone call saying, we would like to shortlist you or long list you, or just straight up, we like your work. Can you propose something for us, please? And then that starts with a site visit, and that's the key, really. So I will spend a lot of time thinking about what that space needs, what is missing, combining that with like an absolute obsession with materials. And I'm just a real keen researcher, so I'm always thinking about what a material does and how I might be able to use that for a different purpose. And then just combining the two, and also really watching people around my work and listening. So maybe not saying that I'm there, but being there in the wings, kind of just earwigging and listening to what people are saying about their experience of the work. And then that feeds into kind of future works. So it's a big mix of all those things.
Are you sort of interested in the future of lighting technology and how that could inform your work, or do you think that you come up with a concept and lighting fits into it? Which way round?
I think I come up with the concept first. Lighting technology bamboozles me slightly, and I remember going around Light and Build and just it's too much. Whereas sometimes I think it's important to know what exists, and of course it's light technology, it's moving at some pace now, and so the things that can be done now couldn't be done even just last year. And so it's important to read the press and see the products and have demonstrations, but I think my work is as much about different materials as it is lighting. Lighting is just one medium within many, using acrylics and glass mirrors and other very ephemeral things. So yeah, often I'll think of the concept and I'll visualize very clearly in my mind's eye what that piece is going to look like. And I'll walk through it in my mind and feel what it would be like as a visitor to be experiencing that. And then it'll be a case of researching what I need to make that, and having conversations with people. Can you do this? Is it even possible?
Yeah. I understand. I mean, even I've been in lighting for 20 plus years, and light and building is overwhelming for me, for anyone. I mean, it is just all of that new tech. Understand completely. If you had someone gave you an unlimited budget and an unlimited amount of time, is there some sort of project that you would love to do that you haven't had a chance to do yet?
Well, unlimited time can be great, but sometimes when you have too long to work on a project, I think it becomes stale. So
That's a good point.
Thinking about the work at Paddington, that was supposed to be 6 months and it went on for 2 years. And if you look at the drawings that I made for the proposal, the final work isn't too far off, but the politics and the bureaucracy that goes on with these big commissions is quite heavy. But say that process was quite simple in the fact that they liked what I drew, let's make it. But sometimes it isn't that simple. Sometimes the commissioners want to have a say, and then the work gets diluted, and then actually it doesn't become your work. Then you have to take back ownership. So yeah, sometimes really short things maintain this energy, and some of the biggest projects I've done, where I've done them very quickly and with a lot of spontaneity, has been much better. So don't give me too much time for this dream project. Unlimited budget. Well, I mean, I've dealt with decent budgets, but okay, so with a bigger budget, you could probably incorporate more technology, or you can incorporate the bigger size. But then I've taken on huge spaces for very, very few pounds. In fact, if you look at your colour perception, I did that with a bin bag full of old second-hand filters. It cost me nothing.
Yeah. So probably this question's
I
the wrong
don't
question
have,
for you.
yeah, I don't have it. I don't have like a dream work that I'd love to make with unlimited resources.
Yeah.
And I think that's because my work comes directly from that initial conversation or that initial site visit. You know, I've got ideas, I've got this black book of ideas, but almost all of them are for kind of smaller gallery-based works, very intimate works, which probably don't cost an unlimited budget. So yeah, I need a site first.
Yeah. No. I think it's a fair point to say that restrictions are something that we do need when we create things. It's, unlimited budget, unlimited time. I mean, what would I do? I don't know how I would answer that. I don't know, write a series of novels, maybe never finish them and die,
I mean, you could ask me what would be like, people have said, oh, where would you most like to show your work? And, for a lot of artists, the turbine hall at the Tate Modern is like the fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then actually, I think I might prefer to take on the Pompidou in Paris or a big hangar in New York, or I don't know, it depends what audience you want as well. So many things to consider.
Yeah. Is there a project that you're most proud of then that you've done? Do you have like a standout?
No. No, I wouldn't. There's ones that are more sentimental, I guess, because it felt like, for example, going back to Your Colour Perception, which was made in 2015, that was seminal because it got me onto the kind of next point where I'd made something that was something I was really passionate about. It was something that I had done that was of scale, whereas things before that were very manageable scale and more sculptural, gallery-based works. So that really proved that I could take on a site. And then because of that work, I've been offered space, really. And I'm definitely not afraid of space. In fact, I'm more afraid of quite enclosed spaces. So that piece is particularly significant, but it doesn't mean to say it's my favourite piece.
Yeah.
Some pieces I really hate when I make them. Well, not really hate, but like I have to. Okay, so one of the things that's quite scary for me is that, yes, we can do all the rendering digitally as we want, but I can't do that. I don't have those facilities or know-how. So often I'm having to communicate to a commissioner what I want to do through drawings or through descriptions or writing. And so I'm seeing big installations unfold for the first time as everybody else around me. So that's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And sometimes you look out on them, you think, oh, that's coming together quite nicely. And then sometimes you think, not quite sure about that. And then there's tinkering and sometimes you just have to live with it for a while and just stand by it and go, right, this now exists in the public realm and people are going to critique it and I have to take ownership over it. So I'm talking about Our Colour Reflection there. So the piece with the mirrors on the floor of the church, when I first put that out, I was like, it's doing what I wanted it to do, but I'm not sure it's my favourite thing because it felt watery and it wasn't all linear and it wasn't, I like geometry, really neat. I'm a bit of a neat freak, and that had more freedom about it. And yeah, it didn't sit right for a while. It's taken me quite a few years to actually fall in love with that piece, which I have done.
That's really interesting because that is the one that I would say if I had a series of pictures of your work, that would be the one that I've not seen that one I haven't experienced that one, but the images of it I always think are absolutely stunning. So
yeah, I mean that's the other thing. I do have to be very careful with who I get to document my work, and I send them really strict instructions. It's almost like a manifesto because I want all the images of my work, which often don't exist beyond a certain point. They only exist in an image, to be succinct and to have be cohesive in terms of my voice as an artist. And when you look at my website and my portfolio, they have to read together. And that work definitely felt like a departure for me because it was using natural light instead of artificial light.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a new chapter.
You mentioned about being critiqued. I mean, I don't know, do you get negative? You had really negative critique, and how does that affect you and your next sort of project?
I think because at art school you're used to critique. You have crit sessions where at Glasgow School of Art you were told to shut up basically, and you presented your work, i.e. it was there in a space and people looked onto it, and everyone else in the group talked about it whilst you sat there writing notes. And it was hard, but I think it was the best education, because it learned that you have to listen to what people are thinking about you. If you put something out there in the world, it might have different connotations to what you intended.
Yeah.
So you have to be like constantly thinking of everything that it might do for everyone. And do you want those connotations to be applied to it? And if you're not happy, then maybe you need to think about changing it. So yeah, when people have been negative, it's not so much like, oh, I hate that work, but maybe like an additive mix, which had 250 6-foot fluorescents in the ceiling, was quite overwhelming for some people. And they'd walk in and they'd look and they were overwhelmed and they'd go, I can't handle this. And they'd walk out. Whereas some people, I found sunbathing in that space. It's like, oh, it's so peaceful. But that's one of the things that feeds into the practice, is how we all individually perceive colour and light together. So yeah, but of course I have to take that on board. But I quite like that it was quite overwhelming for some people. That's good.
Yeah, whenever we've had a bad reaction to something we've done, I sort of have to tell ourselves that a reaction is a reaction. Whatever.
Right.
It is,
Yeah.
I'd rather someone reacted badly than not at all. But
well, exactly. You don't want to flatline, do you? You don't want people to just go, it's all right.
What would you say, that leads on quite nicely to the next question, the biggest challenges that you've overcome in your career so far?
I mean, I think I've been quite lucky, really. I think the biggest challenge is, dealing with lots and lots of people, and it is teamwork, what I do. It's engineers and architects and fabricators and technicians and curators and producers. Lots of people have their hand in what I do. And dealing with them, certain museums, naming none, have been difficult because they want a say, or the bureaucracy. But you deal with it, and it's a learning process. I think the biggest problem I encountered was way before the lighting world ever knew who I was, way before I made big work. And I had this absolute artist block. I think it was about 2013, 14. I just did not know what to do. I was happy with the work I was making to an extent, but it didn't feel like me entirely. I knew I wanted to create these immersive pieces, because the work that I was a fan of, artists that I admired, were all making things that you entered and that you experienced. And I think I'd been taken to galleries and museums from being tiny. So I'd seen work that I loved and wanted to be, as an artist, that's what I wanted to do to my audience. So yeah, I had this real, was I depressed? Maybe. I think it was more situational depression. I just didn't know what to do. And I went on a residency to Kirchwittersmertzbahn in Cumbria with one of my best friends, and had a week to think. Not that a week's very long. But, my husband, before he was my husband, he was always there by my side and giving me advice. And my mum, who's she's listening to this conversation, she's sat in that room there, so she's probably giggling. But she as an artist, but she also teaches, and she gave me a really good brief, which I'll pass on to all you. And that was, make something every day. Don't think too hard about it. And I nicknamed it the construction project. And it was a case of going into my studio, making something from the materials that were there around me, documenting it, putting it back, going home, and then I wrote a blog about it and then posted it to the world. And then repeat that for as many days, not consecutive days as possible. And you end up generating a wealth of material, which you can then look back on and think, I like that, don't like that. Why do I like that? Why don't I like that? So I did that, and that was like the catalyst that opened up a direction for me. But, you know, I did maybe 30 days over 3 months.
Right, okay. One of the things we've found in the sort of Women in Lighting project is whenever an interviewee is talked about, you know, like a problem or doing, you know, making a mistake, or like you're talking about having an artist block, how brilliant that is for people to relate to or watch, you know, when they listen to the interview and think that, you know, that all these people we see that are making, like you are making great work or lighting great projects, that they are fallible and they, you know, so it's really nice that you talk about it and that you're honest about it.
It's important, definitely. I remember, you know, having the lectures at art school, and people, big names, had come in and had said, I made this, I made that, and I made this, and you'd show impressive works, and you thought, yeah, but where's the human story behind all this? It just looked so polished, but it wasn't real.
Yeah, no, people talking about how they got to something and the mistakes they make on the way, I think is really important. Not that an artist block is a mistake. Is there a person that you, or a couple of people that have been sort of particularly influential to you?
I mean, I from the art world perspective, I would probably name artists, but it isn't just one or two. It's several who I've followed for many, many years. Some are very obvious, some are more obscure. But then I think I'm inspired not just by artists, but just by the world, just by looking. And sometimes people make something, they might not even put their name to it. It just exists in the world. And I'm kind of I'm constantly looking when I travel. That might just be looking out my window now and seeing how the kind of the colours change in the different seasons, but just soaking that all in. So I don't think I could name individuals, really. It's just inspiration comes by just being super aware.
Does light inspire you? Sort of, would you list light? You know, do you see different things wherever you go? Is it specifically? Yeah.
I think I'm like super sensitive for everything. All my senses are like super heightened. Like I'm a pain in the ass eater. Like when I was a kid, I had limited diets, like 5 things, because I was, and still am, totally afraid of the texture of things. You know, if it didn't smell great or look great, I wasn't going to eat it. So yeah, and when I go shopping, I'd kind of run my hand over all the fabrics, and I just take in everything. So my head's quite noisy a lot of the time. Like when I'm in a big group of people and people are chatting, I find it hard to concentrate on the conversation I'm having, because I can also hear very clearly everyone else's conversations, which is distracting. So yeah, that means I get headaches quite a lot.
Yeah.
But that means when I'm driving around and, you know, the light shifts, I'm very aware of how the seasons change and the time of day changes. But that's nice. I think we're quite lucky to live in the UK and have the seasons like we do.
I went for a walk today, and there are leaves on the floor. It feels really autumnal today, and it's still August. It's kind of, I'm very aware of a seasonal shift today. I feel a bit sad actually. I've got a friend who's an artist, and she is always talking about the sort of gender divide in the art world the world over, and she's been commissioned to write various reports about that, representation and all that kind of thing. So I'm very aware it exists in the art world. in the sort of female light artist world, there seem to be very few women working that we know about. So whether there are many, many more and their names aren't well known, I mean, why do you think that is, or do you think it's something that needs to change? Or what's the Liz perspective on that?
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I didn't name names as to who inspires me because it's just a roll call of male artists who are in their 60s.
Yeah.
Or 50s, or 50s, 60s, 70s.
Mm.
And I find that really frustrating. I love researching, as I've mentioned a few times, and so it's really important for me to know my genre and know who else is practicing and what work they're producing. And yes, there are more women coming through, but they're all much younger than my age, which is great. How they start getting their names to Terrell status, that's going to take time. I find it really frustrating, and I don't know why this has happened.
Maybe we need to do a young female light art show, get those names out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of female artists that are using light, but light might not be their kind of main medium. For example, like Rana Begum, she's doing amazing work, but it's kind of more about color than light, but light plays a huge role in the work.
Yeah.
Similar to how my practice has gone, I'm drawing, it's not just artificial light that I'm using. I was having a conversation with someone just 2 days ago on a site visit, and she works for a big commissioning agency, and we were chatting about Olafur Eliasson and how his studio is probably predominantly made up of an even split male, female, but it's under his name. It's all under his umbrella, architecture, art practice. And he will sit in meetings, as we know, and he will veto some things and he will okay some things, and then people will go off and make them under his name. And in a way, it's a shame that those individuals don't get more credit. Of course, they're not going to. It's his practice. But quite a lot of those people are probably artists in their own right as well. And what we were talking about with this commissioner was that how he has done so many things now. He takes the concept of color or light and he makes a piece that's sometimes quite obvious, like overlays of colored filters or a spectrum in the room. And sometimes he kind of repeats what other artists are doing, but he does it under his name, and he is so global that it makes it almost impossible for lesser known artists to make work about color, light,
to find their own
and have a voice.
Yeah, find their own space. Yeah. Did you? I mean, my friend, I should, who's educated me in lots of things about the art world. She was saying at one point that I can't remember the quote, but that no sort of successful female artist had, like very successful, had children or had a family. I mean, I don't know if that's I doubt it's completely true, but it was something that was quite common.
But there's quite so many female artists who have got children and look at, I don't know. Yeah, but then you've got problems like Tracy Emin, who has publicly said that she would rather have an abortion, in order to maintain her career, and that is just so damaging. But men are also parents.
Yeah. No, I just
they've got responsibilities too.
Absolutely. I just thought there's obviously many reasons why women don't have the sort of global sort of super name, artists sort of reach as people like Terrell and Olafur Eliasson. I just, hopefully it will change. It will slowly change. If there's anything, this project.
But it was, if you think about their ages, if you think about Terrell, when he was starting out, and say if you go to Villa Panza outside of Milan, and when that was constructed, they were in their 30s, they were my age, and they were making their seminal works permanently in that space, which actually, when you look at them, they haven't moved too far from the work they make today. But that was 50 years ago now. But 50 years ago, the world was very different to the world we live in. Women were paid less. Women were probably thought of being the caregivers. They stayed at home. They had the children. They brought the children up. Men went out to work. So why should that be any different in the art world at that point? But yeah, we live in a very different world now, and it's changing. So maybe in 50 years, there'll be a lot more female artists on our landscape, hopefully.
We hope so. If this project can help in any way, we're up for it. Would you? That's a good place to end, I think. Have you got a message for women out there in lighting, or art?
Just keep doing. I think, even if you look at someone else's working, it's really similar to that, but it's not, because it's coming from their mind rather than someone else's mind. I mean, my work is a complete self-portrait, but you have to kind of scratch the surface a bit and start talking to me or start reading about my work, and you go, yeah. And it's the same for anyone making work. It's because of their own mindset that they're making it. But I also think, work really hard.
Yeah.
Don't think that anything's just going to come to you handed on a plate. And I think when I just graduated, I had these stupid expectations that I was just going to make work and sit in my studio and people were just going to ring me up and offer me things. And it doesn't work like that. You have to do something, and then it gets seen, and then you do something. It's like this ball that just gets rolling, and hopefully it gets faster and faster.
Yes. I think
keep going.
Yeah, keep going. Don't give up. I think that's a really good place to end. So I'm going to say thank you, Liz, and I'm going to stop recording.